Welcome to TREV Ministries, where truth is revealed, explained, and visualized. Welcome once again to T-Reacts, a series where, of course, you send it, I react to it, we discuss it, the Bible has the final say on it, and that's it. All right, so I received a challenge, and I plan to respond to that challenge. Of course, looking at the channel here, going to the community tab, you'd realize that I have a post where I would like you to send all your videos for me to react to, and one of them was quite intriguing to me. It is this one here. All right, the challenge was that I would disprove each point. So of course we're going right into it. We are gonna see what it is. Again, like I have said before, I don't vet the videos, so I don't know what to expect, but you know, of course, that provides a more novel reaction, a fresh reaction to what we are about to see. So I'm gonna do my best to disprove whatever the video is about. So yeah, so let's just get right into it. Okay, so it's about the Bible, I guess.
In a world devoid of life, one God had the ultimate desire to be worshipped. So he created...
Now, he said to disprove each point, right? So the first point, I guess, I'll disprove here. I'm assuming that the time frame that is on the screen refers to how old the earth is, and of course, based on what the Bible says, we understand that the world was created about 6,000 years ago. You know, anything beyond the 6,000 year gap usually ties into you know, an evolutionary understanding of things, and yeah, that is not something that the Bible agrees with, actually. If you look at the timeline of the Bible, if you count the years that relapsed in the lineages, you should be able to calculate the 6,000 years from the time that, you know, Adam would have left the garden after sinning, all the way to about the time of Christ. You would be able to calculate the 1,000 years, you know, just looking at the lineage and how long individuals lived until they made other children. It actually can be done. It actually can be done. You know, so so the earth is really only about 6,000 years. Of course, we understand that the world was without form and void before creation takes place. So we don't know how long the matter existed before creation, right? Because the earth was without form and void before creation took place. So that mass of water would have existed before the creation process started. So we don't know how long that existed. But in terms of when life entered, when life existed on this earth, it's only been about, and I'm referring to all life, like plant life, animal life, that would have existed only 6,000 years ago. So I guess you can consider that to be the first point to be disproven in the video. It's 3 minutes. It seems I have a long way to go. I'm not sure why the angel has a halo on his head or grass blocking his genitalia, since angels do not possess private parts. According to the Bible, angels cannot marry or given in marriage. They do not have any procreative abilities, so they do not have genitalia to block. If we were to go by the Bible, angels are most likely covered in light. right? So yeah, again, I mean, because it's a like a blind reaction without any prior preparation. I don't have all the scriptures in my mind currently. Maybe I should check that out, but I know for sure that angels, they are considered to be made flames of fire. They have been considered to be beams of light. And Christ was very clear about angels not being able to marry or given in marriage or be able to procreate. So I'm sure that they don't have any genitalia to block. I don't know if that's something that I'm supposed to disprove, because technically it's just, I mean, it's just art. It's just how the editor, you know, depicts angels. But yeah, even that itself can be considered unbiblical. So I'm gonna nitpick. I was challenged to nitpick, so I'm gonna do that. Okay, so whatever.
The human race became obsessed or worshipped. One God had the ultimate desire to be worshipped, so he created the human race.
All right, so here's another thing too. I'm not even going to address what's on the screen. What I want to say is God did not create human beings to worship him. That was not the original intention of mankind. The original intention of mankind was to receive love from God. God never created anybody or anything for that matter only to give him love and praise and honor and glory, but he actually created out of love. He created for love. He created to love. He created to share the experience of love that he has. And you know, Revelation chapter 4 verse 11 really you know, solidifies that point. It was for our pleasure that he was created. You know, you'd realize that the Bible also says in Mark 2 verse 27 that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. In other words, God did not create mankind just to follow his commandments. He created the commandments so that you know, mankind can benefit from it. You understand? And of course, created as in from time immemorial, right? From eternity past, right? So no, God did not create us to worship him, or you know, just because he has an ego, he wanted someone to stroke his ego. No, that's not the case. He created us so that he can love us. And the natural response to that love toward us, of course, we would in turn reciprocate that love and give him glory and honor and praise and so on. So that's a misconception about God that should not apply to the biblical God at all.
Became obsessed with their foreskin.
All right, so this, okay, clearly this video is it's basically a joke, I guess. I'm not even sure. I don't even know what to do with that point. I guess the point here is to make fun of the rite of circumcision. That was not an obsession, first of all. It was a sign or a seal to indicate that you are a part of God's people. It was not something that was always existing. I believe it started with Abraham and his family. And of course, it's an illustration as well that, you know, by removing what's, I guess, unnecessary, you are demonstrating the work that God is doing in our hearts as well, because he is also circumcising our hearts, you know, by removing sin from it. So yeah, that's not an obsession. Yeah, but I now I have a pretty good feeling of what this video is just going to be a piss stick, basically. But we'll see. I'll survive.
And then gave them a choice: love me back or burn.
Yeah, that's another one too. Love me back or burn. A lot of individuals believe that there's this assumption that hell is God's way of getting back at people that don't love him. And that's not the case. And it's important that we understand that there are what I like to call universal laws. They are universal laws. Wow, I'm on 42 seconds of this video. This is crazy. Yeah, there are universal laws, which means that there are natural, inevitable consequences of your own choice, right? So God is love, and God gave us free will as an act of love, so that we can choose to love him back. It is not God's fault that he's the source of life. You understand? So if we choose anything but God, and God is our source of life, it is a natural result that death takes place. You understand? It's literally that simple. God is the source of life. Sin separates us from God. The wages of sin is death. So it is not that God destroys us because we don't love him. No, it is because we don't love him, we choose anything but God. We choose eternal death as opposed to living in eternity with God. And if we really understand the concept of evil and the danger of it, you'd realize that even if God was to save and accept all evil people, all wicked people, and bring them to heaven, they themselves would consider that to be hell. They would consider that to be torture, because there's nothing in heaven that would strike a chord in their heart, because they are so bent towards evil. You understand? So that's another major misconception of God, that is you have two options. You either love me or go to hell. And what it sounds like is you either love God by force or you die as a result. And I'm saying that's not the case. It is natural for God to promote life and health and happiness. And if you choose to opt out on serving God and loving God, the natural consequence of your action is to be separated from the source of life. It's that simple. God, the only reason individuals go to hell is because God respects the free will of the individuals that choose not to be with God. So I think it's important to note that. And one of the best examples of that would be the Garden of Eden. Maybe that comes up in the video, but I'll say it now anyway. You know, when God instructed Adam and Eve and said, listen, you know, if you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die. A lot of people, like, we read that text and it's like, if you eat from that tree, I will surely kill you. That's not what it says. It's a natural consequence of your choice that if you eat from that tree, you will surely die. It will be inevitable that you will perish because you disobeyed God, which means that you are separated from God, or you will be separated from God. And of the natural result of being separated from the source of life is death. You will surely die. So God did not kill them. It was the sin that killed them, right? And that's the point. And I really hope that you know, that we understand that. A lot of people, and that's why I keep telling people the most important doctrine to understand is the character of God. Because once you have a misunderstanding of the character of God, then every other doctrine is skewed in your mind. You know, it's really important that we understand the character of God, and especially as the role of the remnant, it is our role to vindicate the character of God. And we do that by demonstrating, of course, how the Bible depicts the character of God. But it's also important to teach correctly about the character of God, and in these two ways we can indeed vindicate his character, right? So just wanted to mention that. Let's continue. We have a few more minutes to go.
His favorite chosen people rose up and wrote the worldwide bestseller that nobody reads.
Yeah, again. Well, should I be going through the text that's coming up on the screen? The worldwide bestseller that nobody reads, that by itself is it's a contradiction. It's the world bestseller because people read it. That's why it's called the world bestseller. So that doesn't even make sense. I guess in the circle of the individual that made this video, it might seem that way, that nobody reads it, because, you know, wherever his circle is, or her circle, whatever he or she is associated with, then it seems that way, that nobody reads it. But yeah, a lot of individuals read it. Yeah, okay. So let's go back. There was a
worldwide bestseller that nobody.
Okay, so the first text is Numbers 5:11 to 31. So let's observe that. I'm not sure why that text is there. Is it to prove what he just said? Numbers 5:11 to 31. So yeah, let's just see that. 11 to 31. Okay. Okay. Again, he doesn't even make reference to the text, but he. Okay. All right.
Reads all about how they.
Okay. Numbers 21:6. Let's see. Numbers 21:6. So the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of. Okay. All right. So so the sending of the serpents is a demonstration of the text. So does that mean that the previous
worldwide bestseller that nobody reads?
Okay. So there's nothing in the video that demonstrates the first text.
All about how they.
But this one it does apply.
The favorite chosen people in every church and no. Okay,
so wow. Okay, let's go a frame back. We'll come back to this. So, oh, by the way, if you don't know, you could use the you know where the full stop and the comma is. That's where you could go frame by frame instead of like going anyway. 5 seconds ahead or 5 seconds behind. You could actually go frame by frame by using the full stop and the comma. Yeah, anyway. All right, so, you know, because they lacked faith and they chose not to obey God, God sent fiery serpents on them. I find it quite funny that he doesn't give the whole story. He doesn't indicate, one, that God gave warnings before this took place, right? That's not even mentioned here. Secondly, he doesn't mention the fact that there was a solution to this problem, that this was not random, it was not emotional either. It was something that they were warned of and they insisted on it, so they suffered the consequence of it. And even while they were suffering the consequence, God provided a solution to the problem, which is why there was a serpent that was welded on a staff, and if they looked at, all they had to do was look at it and they would live. But that's not mentioned here. So notice that it's a very myopic view of the character of God, and even the video depiction seems to imply that God literally sent them, like he threw them from heaven onto them and they just started biting everybody. Again, that's not the case. They were already in the wilderness. What God would have done is simply called them from wherever they are in the desert, or he could have simply withdrawn his protection, and as a result of that they became more aggressive. And that's something that happens all the time in the Bible, that if God chooses to withdraw his protection, then the natural predatory instinct of animals begin to be exercised against humans. So it's important to understand that even when the Bible implies that God is doing something, sometimes it simply means that God is allowing something to take place. So yeah, that's not an accurate representation of God or the story, right?
The favorite chosen people in.
Yeah, another thing to the favorite chosen people. Again, I think that the text is clear as well. There's a difference between favorite and chosen. The reason why they were chosen is because God made a promise with someone that chose him. Notice that there's always a reciprocation here, that it was the free will action of one individual that chose to continue serving God, and as a result of that, he received a blessing through his lineage. That's why we have a chosen people. It was not that God preferred these people over everybody else on the earth. It was simply that because this individual, Abraham, would have chosen. In fact, it goes, well, yeah, it actually goes before Abraham, but I guess the central point here is Abraham, that by choosing God, right, by responding to the call of God, he became the man that God chose to continue the work. And that has been the case since the beginning of time. God chooses those that choose him, and he uses those that choose him to, minister to others. And that's basically the point. So a chosen people here is simply based on the promise that he would have made with Abraham. That does not imply that he prefers them more than anyone else, because of course we understand that Christ died for every single one of us. So yeah, the Bible is pretty clear on that. God is not a respecter of persons. I think that's in Acts chapter 10. I think it's also in James chapter 2. So there's no preference here, right?
Every church and no-tell motel room.
Okay, so I guess the point here is that individuals sin during the week, and then on Sunday morning, I guess they contradict their own lifestyle. I get that. Notice the facial expression of the Sunday morning preacher. He seems to be very harsh and angry and aggravated. All right, so yeah, I get that. I guess we can continue. It is true that many of us don't practice what we preach. Maybe this is an old video, because I'm surprised that I mean, this video is pretty much going all the way against God. So I'm a bit surprised that this individual seems to find that homosexuality is an unbiblical practice, which I agree it is an unbiblical practice. So I'm surprised that this is something that this is a view that the individual holds. So okay, I at least that's one good thing about the video so far.
Room of every gay-hating gay preacher comes the one motel room of every gay-hating in every church and no-tell motel room of every gay-hating gay preacher.
All right, so this is another point I think it's important to clarify, that anybody that is a genuine Bible-believing Christian understands that we love the sinner and hate the sin. God loves the sinner and hates the sin. By preaching against the act, we are in no way implying that we hate the individual that is doing the act. Again, I've made a whole video on just that, the gospel for the LGBTQ plus community. So you could always check that out when you'd like. But yeah, that's again, yeah, it's literally just misconstruing everything. That's what this video seems to be about. So yeah.
No-tell motel room of every gay-hating gay preacher comes the one book to rule them all. Witness the Lord, end incest and evil by drowning everyone on earth.
Right, so okay, so here's another thing too, that the Bible, because the Bible contains such gruesome stories, and it records so much crime and bloodshed, then the Bible supports these things. And again, that's another error. The Bible records it because it is an accurate, divinely inspired historical document of the acts of many individuals from those in the past, right? That doesn't mean that everything that the Bible records it supports, and I've said that before in a few of my videos. Not everything the Bible describes is what the Bible prescribes. not everything the Bible records is what the Bible recommends. So, and in fact, this is actually proof of its inspiration, because most religious books paint their characters, like the main characters, as individuals who are without flaw, without fault. But this is not the case. This is the Bible is sacred history. It's inspired history, and as a result of that, you'd realize that it is authentic and unbiased for anybody in the Bible. You understand? So I think it's again, this is another error. This is not what the Bible supports. And yes, it records killing and so on and so forth, but it does not support that. It is simply recorded to show how does it, what significance does this story play in the plan of salvation. And the Bible also records these things to show us the danger of getting to that point. How can you get to that point? What are the results of getting to that point? And of course, it's a deterrent so that we do not commit the things that are, some of the things that are recorded in the Bible. So yeah.
Except the one good family who go on to produce more incest. And
the argument of incest is another big one too. And of course, the Bible is very clear that, you know, individuals should not be sleeping with their children and so on. That goes without saying, right? Notice that what the individual, again, I don't know, right? This could just be a voiceover, so I cannot assume that it was a male that made the video. So just whether it's a he or a she, you know, you'll understand the maker of this video, right? Notice that, okay, he says that God destroys everybody for flood, except for the good family, and even after that they still end up, you know, continuing the same actions of the individuals that died. Again, please give the whole story. Everybody had 100 years plus of a warning of what was going to take place. There was a simple instruction that everybody should get into this safe place because a natural disaster is coming because of the sins of those at that time. That, to me, that's simple, right? The same way a weather report, you know, individuals who are frontline workers can tell us, hey, something is about to happen. This is the safest way to avoid it, and we do it. So that's the same thing that happened back then. They were given an instruction, get on the ark. They chose not to get on the ark. The natural consequence of their own actions was death. It's literally that simple. So again, this video is clearly aiming at just ridiculing the Bible. And honestly, this is like, if I wasn't acquainted with my audience, I would feel like this is casting pearls before swine. All right, I doubt the maker of this video would ever see this. So I'm really doing this just for those who are actually acquainted with my channel. This is purely unbiblical. There's almost nothing right about this video at all. But it is something that it does hold a lot of the arguments that individuals hear and repeat. Notice I didn't say that this is something that they research and argue. No, they just hear and repeat. So it doesn't make sense in their mind. They heard it from somebody else, so they just repeat it because it makes sense. But if did they even go to the text? Have they ever looked at the text? Chances are that might not even be the case, right? So that's the irony of these kind of arguments. If you just take a second look at it, if you look at it for just a second longer than repeating what someone else says, you'd realize that most of the arguments here, they really don't make any sense, right? Yeah, so incest is unbiblical. And yes, it's recorded in the Bible, but the Bible does not support it, right? That's not the point.
More evil. Having learned that water doesn't stop incest and evil, God...
Again, God never intended that water would stop sin. What is the point of this video? What is the point? The Bible does not record God intending water to end sin. No, God sent his son to end sin. That's what his son was for, right? The purpose of the water destroying the antediluvian world was so that it prevents the tide of evil getting to a point where mankind itself would become extinct by their own sin. That was the intention of the flood, right? The intention of the flood was, again, as I just said a while ago, everybody had a chance to escape it, but they chose not to because they did not believe in God. They continued in their life of sin. That is the point, right? So, yeah, that's not the point. That's not the point at all.
God destroys Sodom and Gomorrah with fire, except the only good family, who go on to produce more incest and more evil.
Right, so here's another thing too, and I think you'll get the point of this video by now. So why did God rescue Lot and not the rest of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Again, just read the whole story, right? Abraham interceded on behalf of Lot. That's one. Two, the Bible records Lot as a righteous man, right? And if you remember Abraham's intercession, the Bible does indicate that if there were 10 righteous people in the city, then the city would not have been destroyed, right? So again, the Bible records the righteousness of God, even in demonstrating justice on Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Again, this is the same concept that I just discussed in the destroying of the individuals that lived in Noah's time. There is, and this is important to understand, the Bible says that the sin here was at such a volume that the Bible illustrates it as sin going up to God, right? In other words, the city would have reached its point where it would have crossed the line that it would, like, there's literally no individual here that would have accepted salvation, and they would have continued to perpetuate sin to the destruction of themselves and others, right? That's literally the point here again. So Lot was rescued, yes. The reason why Lot's family went with him is because they followed the instruction of Lot. Lot's wife followed, and Lot's wife was lost because she did not follow the entire instruction that was given. Yes, it is true that because Lot's wife and Lot's daughters were already contaminated by the environment of Sodom and Gomorrah, so they themselves continued the lifestyle that they had already adopted, the principles that they had already adopted in Sodom and Gomorrah. And of course, Lot himself was fully intoxicated by his daughters before his daughters slept with him. The Bible doesn't even say that he slept with them. They slept with him. It means that they would have had him at a point where he was so inebriated that he could not even function. And that was the intention of the daughters, not Lot, you know. So it seems to me that he's trying to create a contradiction in the Bible, that God seems to just pick and choose which sinner to give a slap on the wrist and which sinner to completely destroy. He has favorites, he has bias, and I'm saying that the Bible is very clear that that is not the case. It's not the case, right? Again, this gruesome story here, how could you jump from Lot all the way to Judges as if it is just, and that's my point. He's literally trying to look for like the worst stories in the Bible to paint a picture of the entire Bible. And if I was a more studious individual, I would tell you there's a logical fallacy there. I can't remember which one it is, right? But yeah, that is a logical fallacy. So this story is a very sad story. It's a very graphic story, but there's a development of sin over hundreds of years that get to that point. It is not that an individual wakes up one morning and decides to do something like that. Yeah, again, it's Guys, read the entire Bible in its proper light. Please. All right?
The Lord, expert problem solver, demands genocide after genocide of...
Right, and another one, genocide after genocide. You, again, if you go back to Deuteronomy, starting Deuteronomy, you would realize that that God instructed his people to drive them out. Drive them out. Drive them out. The whole point was that they would be driven out from their lands. I'm talking about the heathen nations. The Israelites would have driven out the heathen nations from their lands. They would have found other land, because there's a lot of land to go around. The Israelites would have simply owned only the promised land. And as they are based in the promised land, they would have expanded. The intention was that they would represent God, they would follow his law, share Christ with others. And as they continue to expand, by reproducing and multiplying and demonstrating the character of God, then it would have, in that way, the message of Christ would have reached the entire world. That was the original intention. But I mean, when you jump to Judges, at a point where there are no leaders, there are no prophets, and every chapter they relapse into sin, worshiping false gods. He is literally focusing on the times where the Israelites reject God. And then he's blaming God. Whoever made this video is blaming God for the point in time in the Bible where the Israelites reject God. This is all the work of the enemy. This is literally all the work of the devil. So why are you attributing it to God just because the Bible records it? You understand what I'm saying? It's like a contradiction, you know? Yeah, there's so many things wrong here. The only instances where armies are destroyed, where people are destroyed, would be one, as I mentioned earlier, that the iniquity of the individual has come to the full, right? God, who is righteousness, he is the source of life. We understand that sin separates us from God. As a result of that, the wages of sin is death, and God can determine how the individual suffers that punishment. Again, this is literally that, and in all of these instances, that's literally just the first death, right? There is that, I mean by that, it's a temporary sleep until there's an actual resurrection to take place later. That's another whole study by itself. But yeah, it's usually when one, either the armies retaliate against the individual, against the Israelites, or two, they initiate the attack against the Israelites, or three, they would have gotten to a point where they had violated themselves, destroyed their own humanity, and of course God saw it fit that they would be destroyed, right? And that's the point. It's also based on the assumption that these individuals, you know, it's not an assumption. You would realize that all of these cities and nations that were destroyed by the Israelites, they all got a fair opportunity of hearing the gospel, accepting the gospel, becoming, you know, a worshiper of Jehovah, and they chose not to. You understand? So yeah, this is not the genocide that individuals just point out in the Bible as, you know, just a random, hey guys, let's go and kill them. No, it's never that. It is all, there's always much more to the story than just the fact that certain individuals were killed, right? There are even instances where the divided nation of Israel, right, where you have Judah and Israel fighting against each other, and people use that to say, oh, it's a genocide of heathen nations. Why? Just read the Bible, you know.
His creation for failing to accomplish their task of worshiping him and not...
Again, well, I already made that point. God doesn't kill just because you don't worship me or because you don't love me. That is not the case. I already made that point before. God created us so that he could love us. We are the ones that choose not to love him. We are the ones that choose to reject his love. We are the ones that choose to not want to be in his presence. We are the ones that choose to hate him. We are the ones that prefer death than to be with him. We are the ones that choose hell than heaven. We are the ones that make that choice. All right?
Doing so much incest and evil. Nothing seems to work. Then the ultimate solution dawns on him. Instead of killing tons of evil people, dawns on him.
Ideas to forgive people for breaking my rules. Just do it. Forced labor. What is he implying that God was the one that promoted slavery? Just don't do it, as in just don't forgive them. Again, the Bible has probably 100 passages, if not more, that emphasize that God is ready to forgive. He is always willing to forgive. He is plenteous in mercy. He is long suffering. He, you know, if anybody comes to him, he'll not cast them out. There are so many passages. Isaiah 55:7, Jeremiah 31 verse 3. There are so many passages. There are so many passages that make that point. Just don't do it. Kill my son. Again, why is it phrased that way? Was it God that killed his son? No. The Bible says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. He gave his only begotten son. His son was the one that chose to die. It was his choice. And if you know, for example, I believe this is in Patriarchs and Prophets, you would realize that the father was actually a bit hesitant to give up his son. There were 3 times where the son literally had to ask the father to, you know, let me go and I will lay my life down to save them. So again, the picture that is painted about God here is unbiblical. It is incorrect. It is extreme. It's foolish. It's ignorant. That's what it is. It's just bad.
Instead of killing tons of evil people, just kill the one good person, his own son. Step 1. Impregnate a married 12-year-old.
Right, again, okay. So, 1, I think I have come across this before. I've not been able to verify that Mary was very young. I've heard that before, but can't verify it. Secondly, was she married? No, she was engaged to be married. She was not married as yet. In fact, the Bible says that Joseph was willing to put her away quietly because, you know, he did not want to make a public example of her. I think that the Bible mentions that. So yeah.
Step 2. That's it, really. No more steps. Witness.
I think I missed that. I think I missed that point. Yeah, I don't know why I don't get that point at all.
All the beautiful poetry and sage wisdom. Share it however you like. Ignore the barbarity, torture, and slavery.
Okay, so what I understand here, basically this, I think he is saying that these are the instructions that God gave to his son. Say all the nice things, avoid all the heinous things that took place before. So the first assumption here is that the Father is the one that did everything in the Old Testament, and Jesus is the one that did everything in the New Testament. I'm sure you've heard that before. I'm sure some of you might even believe that as well. That is not the case. Jesus is actually the God of the Old Testament as well. Yeah, that's important to understand. Jesus is primarily the God that interacts with mankind in the Old Testament. Of course, we could always discuss that some other time, but boy, this video is super long already. It's too long, right? But it has so much error, so I mean, forgive me, but it's really bad. It's really bad. This is like this is like marking an essay. It's really bad. All right. Yeah. So he's saying that the Father would have told Jesus to, use all the nice poems and stuff and ignore the rest. What I want to say here, first of all, is that there are many instructions that God gave that the Israelites misused. Right? They misused it. The context of the instructions that God gave to the Israelites in the wilderness, you have to understand that they just came out of slavery. So a lot of the rules that they were given at that time were literally to reverse that slavery mentality. So that's something that we must note. Again, notice that there's no context for the text on the screen, for example, because as soon as you see the word slave, the first thing we think about is, the transatlantic slave trade, right? Do you think about how black people were misused and mistreated and so on and so forth, and we just superimpose that assumption into scripture? You would realize that that is not the case. The way that slaves were used in the Israelite context is not the way that slaves were used by the Europeans, right? So that's another easy misconception to make by just looking at the text, read the word slave, and boom, all of a sudden you just assume that this is what it means. No, if you take a careful look at the rules that govern slaves, you'd realize that it could refer to like indentured laborers, servants, and so on and so forth. So that's another thing that you need to pay attention to.
That's out of context. The most.
Yeah, and this is another thing too. Why is that a problem? I've heard that a lot too, that critics of the Bible say that Christians' favorite cop-out is saying that it is out of context. But it is out of context. What's wrong with saying that? If I was to take your statement and put it out of context, you would have definitely cried foul as well. You understand? So if the Bible has a specific context, it was written by specific individuals for specific individuals at a specific time, then the original context is very important, and I have a whole series on that, keys for study, knowing how to study the Bible, and I show where, in one of the videos, I explain why context is actually very important. Yeah, so
epic political.
Right, so another thing too, God hates fags. I just cleared that up a while ago. God does not hate fags. God does not hate gays. God hates the lifestyle. God hates the activity. God hates the practice. God hates the sin. God does not hate the individuals that participate in that. Okay, it's important to make that distinction.
Tool to push your agenda with the authority of a God.
Right, so the abortion thing too, I made a video on that as well. I'll not spend too much time on that. Yes, the Bible rejects the taking of any life. I don't think I need to discuss that any further. If you want more details, then you could check out my video on abortion.
Because your opinions are always his opinions.
Honestly, I wish that was the case. First of all, God does not have any opinion. Yeah, God is the truth. So, and given that he cannot lie, Titus chapter 1 verse 2, Hebrews 6 verse 18, Numbers 23 verse 19, Psalm 89:34, the fact that God cannot lie means that he doesn't have an opinion. Everything that he says is fact. And it is not that everything that he says he makes fact. That's not what I said. Everything he says is fact because he knows that it is fact. Yeah, so yeah, God doesn't have opinions. But yeah, that would be nice that everything that God thinks is what we think. That would be we'd be living we'd be in a perfect world if everything that God thought we thought. yeah, so if we think like God, then we would live like him, which means we'll keep the commandments, which means that there'll be no stealing, no killing, no lying. We'll be in a perfect world, you know. So
The Bible. Coming soon to a theater near you. And by soon, I mean thousands of years from now, obviously.
yeah, so I think that's the score for now, where he's basically saying that, you know, God said that he's coming soon since the time he wrote the book of Revelation, and it's been a few thousand years now and he hasn't come as yet. Again, the Bible is clear that there are certain things that must take place first. For example, in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the Bible is very clear that that day will not come except there be a falling away first. And of course, the man of sin is to be revealed. That refers to a religio-political power that will rise eventually to force the world into false worship. So that must take place first before Jesus comes. So again, yeah, it's the Bible is pretty clear about everything as far as I'm concerned. It's just that it's unfortunate that many of us hold a very myopic view of the Bible without taking everything that it has to say, and it has painted a very false picture of God. Yeah.
Oh, this gonna be good.
All right, I'm done. This was a really long video. Honestly, I'm gonna put this in the edit. This video, the raw file, is about 55 minutes long. So whatever the length of video is when I cut it and upload it, just know that this was 55 minutes long. This video had so much error to deal with that it's crazy. It is crazy. So yeah, I hope that I met your challenge. Honestly, I probably should have gone through it first so that I could give you all the text and so on and so forth. But yeah, let's not do that. You know, even if I respect your opinion, at least be fair about it. You understand? At least be fair about it. It doesn't matter what opinion you hold. If you are talking about someone else or another belief or another denomination or another religion, at least be fair and have all the evidence, and then you know you can present a proper argument against it. But this was yeah, that's I don't know what to call it, intellectual dishonesty, myopia. There are so many things that you could call it, you know. So yeah, dark matter 2525. It seems that it's your trend. If you behave like God, I'm not gonna react to any other video from this guy, to be honest. I don't want to be the one to be, you know, propagating error, even if I'm tearing it apart. But yeah, all right. So yeah, that's the end of this video. It was very sad. Yeah, all right, I'm done. TREV Ministries over and out. Until the next time.